There is something about ancient Egypt that refuses to be forgotten. Unlike other civilizations whose ruins fade quietly into the landscape, Egypt's presence remains vivid, etched in stone, scale, and mystery. Its monuments are not echoes of the past. They are challenges to the present. They ask questions we still can't answer. This was not just a culture that built cities. It was a civilization obsessed with time, death, the stars, and eternity. It didn't just build for kings, it built for cosmic meaning. According to mainstream history, dynastic Egypt began around 3100 BCE. But this beginning already shows a mature society with a writing system, artistic language, and cosmology that feel inherited, not invented. How does a civilization emerge fully formed? Without a traceable evolution? Without a clear cultural prototype before it? Egypt seems not to have risen from chaos, but to have descended from memory. A memory older than writing. The Nile gave Egypt its breath, but its soul was built on something deeper. The Egyptians saw no division between the physical and the metaphysical. Everything had meaning, every stone, every angle, every sound, every symbol. Their architecture wasn't just functional, it was philosophical. It translated divine law into form. Temples weren't simply places of worship. They were three-dimensional texts encoded with celestial knowledge. To walk through an Egyptian temple was to move through layers of sacred order, each step a movement closer to the eternal. They called it Ma'at, balance, harmony, universal law. Everything from politics to architecture aligned with this principle. Ma'at wasn't a goddess you prayed to. It was a law you embodied. And perhaps the greatest structure shaped by Ma'at is the Great Pyramid of Giza. It stands as the largest of Egypt's mysteries, not because of its size, but because of its silence. It faces true north with a precision unmatched by most modern buildings. The base is almost perfectly level despite its massive scale. Its height and base encode P. The ratio of its dimensions mirrors that of Earth. There are no hieroglyphs, no decorative walls, no inscriptions claiming its origin. It is anonymous, timeless, monumental, and its construction remains unexplained. Millions of multi-ton blocks fitted with near-perfect precision. Some stones weighing over 70 tons were lifted and placed at heights modern cranes would struggle to reach. Inside, narrow shafts align with stars. Some lead to sealed chambers, others go nowhere. Mainstream scholars propose ramps and massive labor forces. But no convincing evidence has been found, and no ramp theory explains the placement of the largest blocks. So the question lingers. Was it really just a tomb, or was it something else entirely? A machine for spiritual transformation? A resonance chamber for energy? A monument meant to survive floods of time and thought? We don't know, and that's what makes it powerful. The Egyptians believed in something called the Ka, the essence of a person. At death, the Ka left the body, but could return if the body was preserved and the right rituals performed. This is why they mummified the dead, why tombs were filled with offerings, statues, and texts. But these weren't funerary traditions in the modern sense. They were metaphysical technologies, tools to guide the soul through the afterlife and beyond. Temples and pyramids weren't just memorials, they were gateways. Each part of a structure corresponded to a stage of spiritual journey. Each symbol activated something within the observer. This was architecture not just for the eye, but for the soul. Many believe the Great Pyramid is the only wonder in Egypt. But the landscape surrounding it tells a different story. Giza is part of a greater network, a sacred complex designed with mathematical and astronomical intelligence we still don't fully understand. The three main pyramids mirror the stars of Orion's belt. This alignment is not symbolic, it's precise. Their orientation matches the position of those stars as they appeared around 10,500 BCE. Coincidence, or memory encoded in stone? The ancient Egyptians revered Orion. They believed their god Osiris, the god of death, resurrection, and cosmic order, was connected to that constellation. And perhaps that belief wasn't myth. Perhaps it was legacy. Under the paws of the Sphinx lies another mystery. a hidden chamber detected by seismic scans, one that no one has been allowed to excavate. Why? What is buried beneath the oldest monument on the plateau? The Sphinx itself raises questions. Its body is eroded vertically, in a way consistent with heavy rainfall, something that hasn't occurred in that region since thousands of years before dynastic Egypt. Some geologists suggest it may be far older than the pyramids. If that's true, our entire timeline collapses. Imagine a civilization before Egypt, whose traces were erased by time, but whose knowledge was preserved in the blueprints of Giza. If that idea sounds far-fetched, consider this. No ancient Egyptian texts describe the building of the pyramids. No writings claim credit. No temple wall shows how they were constructed. It's as if they inherited them. Egyptian legends even speak of a mythical age, the Zep Tepi, the first time. A golden era when the gods walked with man and knowledge was passed from heaven to earth. Scholars interpret it as mythology. But what if it's history misunderstood? The Egyptians didn't view myth and fact as opposites. They saw myth as a higher truth, something that reveals the spiritual structure of reality. To them, Osiris wasn't just a god of the dead. He was a symbol of divine order, sacrifice, and rebirth. Isis, his wife, represented wisdom and healing. Together, they formed the cosmic drama of death and resurrection, a cycle reflected in the Nile, the stars, and the human soul. These were not fairy tales. They were spiritual systems encoded in symbolic form. Each god represented a force of nature, a law of being, a dimension of consciousness. Even the way the temples were designed reflects this worldview. The initiate would move from light into darkness, and from darkness into light again, mirroring the journey of the soul. Along the temple walls, scenes were not just illustrations, they were vibrational blueprints. Symbols in ancient Egypt were sound-based. Every hieroglyph had a frequency, not just a meaning. And when pronounced correctly, they were believed to affect reality. The priesthood guarded these secrets. The temples were acoustic structures. Every chamber resonated at specific frequencies. The king's chamber in the Great Pyramid resonates at 440 Hz, the exact pitch of the modern musical note A. That cannot be accidental. Acoustic analysis reveals that some chambers amplify sound in ways that modern concert halls would envy. Why? Were the Egyptians using sound to awaken states of consciousness? Or to preserve memory in the architecture itself? We don't know, but we're only beginning to understand what they may have mastered. They weren't building monuments to death. They were building systems of transformation. Their worldview was holistic. There was no separation between the soul and the cosmos, between geometry and emotion, between sound and matter. In that view, to build was to think. To sculpt was to invoke. To measure was to align yourself with divine intelligence. It's not that they were primitive. It's that they were playing by a different set of rules. And perhaps that's what disturbs us the most. They left us messages not meant to be read, but to be felt. Not to be decoded by logic, but by presence, intuition, and reverence. Modern science sees the universe as a system of laws and particles. Ancient Egypt saw it as a system of meaning and memory. We study space through telescopes. They aligned their lives with the stars. We build to dominate. They built to transcend. It's easy to assume we are more advanced. But what if advancement is not only measured in machines? What if it is also measured in the depth of our questions and in the wisdom of our silence? Egyptian architecture was not just structure. It was intention, a constant dialogue between human consciousness and cosmic order. The temples of Karnak, Luxor, and Dendera follow astronomical alignments. They mirror the paths of stars and the cycles of time. They were not passive buildings. They were interactive, alive, each corridor a metaphor, each chamber a ritual, each symbol a key. The Temple of Dendera, for example, contains the famous Dendera light carvings, depictions that resemble modern electrical devices. Most scholars explain them as stylized lotus flowers, but others see something different, a possible memory of forgotten technology. If true, these images suggest not only symbolic depth, but technical knowledge encoded in metaphor. And if that's the case, what else have we misunderstood? The Temple of Abydos holds a relief that many believe shows modern machines, helicopters, aircraft, even submarines. Scholars say it's palimpsest, layers of texts that overlapped by accident. Still, the resemblance is uncanny. Could these anomalies be fragments of a memory we've lost? A memory buried under centuries of sand and certainty? Perhaps the Egyptians knew we would forget, and that's why they built in stone. Their message was not for their own time. It was for those who would come much later, when the world would once again hunger for meaning. Their silence was not ignorance. It was mastery. They understood that mystery is not a lack of knowledge, but a doorway to it. They did not try to explain everything. They left space for wonder, for intuition, for awe. And that's why their civilization, though long gone, is still alive. Because we're still listening, still decoding, still remembering. And maybe that was their greatest secret of all. That truth is not something you learn. It is something you become. They didn't leave us answers. They left us questions powerful enough to last forever.